Hello, good morning. Welcome to Gaming Insight Daily for Monday, May 5th, 2025. I'm Steve Saylor. This is your daily show of gaming news, accessibility news, or updates about my life. I have coffee in my Twitch mug today. Oh, yeah. That's the good stuff. I feel like it's been a while. I know it definitely has been at least a week, but I feel like I haven't talked about any new stuff in the past little while because I've been focusing on the Nintendo Switch 2 event that I was at over a week ago now. And if you haven't caught up on any of the videos that I put out, don't worry, I have a playlist of all the Switch 2 experience videos that I have, including the hardware, Switch 2 hardware thoughts, my thoughts on Mario Kart, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Metroid Prime 4, and Drag and Drive. So check out all those videos. I would really appreciate it. Other bit of housekeeping is that this week is PAX East week. I am heading out to PAX on Wednesday. I am going to try to see if I can actually be able to do some shows while I'm at PAX. Mainly just because like I'll be in the hotel room and I don't necessarily have to be at the convention super early in the mornings. Sometimes I might, but I can at least be able to wake up at my normal time and hopefully be able to do a show. We shall see. Depending on Wi-Fi, depending on how busy I am or how tired I am, we shall see. But I am going to try to be able to do at least an episode every single day this week because I like doing it and I'm on a roll, and y'all are really supportive and appreciative of all of my videos, so I really do appreciate that. Also today, if you actually, a bit of housekeeping, if you're actually watching this on May 5th in the morning on Eastern Standard Time, I'm actually going to be streaming Magic the Gathering with my friends that I have been doing kind of almost every Monday. Thorman Gander, T-Monster, and also Mike the Quad. But we're kind of doing a bit of rebranding. We are going to be calling ourselves Mana Buds. So make sure to come in and watch that. And we're going to be finally playing the Takir Dragonstorm sets that we all have, and we're going to play the precons of each one of those. So if you're interested in Magic the Gathering, interested in card games, this will be our first time playing these decks, and I'm excited. So come check that out when you can, or if you can. Otherwise, we'll just have to buy it up on my Twitch channel. So anywho, that's all the housekeeping I got for today. Let's jump into the news, and this is kind of a big one. To be honest, if you think about it, we've got Half-Life 3 news. Something I never thought I would be able to say on this show. This is by Chris Scullion over at VGC. Half-Life 3 is playable end-to-end, Valve Insider claims. What? So Tyler McVicker, who has a history of insider reporting on Valve projects, claimed in his latest YouTube discussion that the game, which is reportedly codenamed HLX, is far enough ahead in development that it can be played from start to finish. McVicker claimed that HLX is being playtested by a sizable group of people and that some of them have already leaked plot details to other people. HLX is being playtested so religiously and so widely that there are individuals that will just talk, he said. I personally have a policy of avoiding any story-related questions or information when possible, so I currently have avoided all of them, but I've been offered it by people whom are trustworthy, and I know that some of my contemporaries have been given it. So there is information out there about the plot. Elsewhere in his video, McVicker stressed that Half-Life 3 is not a VR title like Half-Life Alyx was, and that Alyx had been leaked significantly more than HLX had been at this point in development, suggesting the current project is being kept more tightly under wraps to an extent. At this point in Alyx's development, I knew the ending. I knew pretty much every major gameplay aspect of it. At this point, I had screenshots. Given its reported stage of development, McVicker said that the game could be ready for an announcement this summer and a release in the winter, though it was stressed that this was purely guesswork on his part. This is the furthest that it's ever been, he explained, period. The game is playable end-to-end, period. It's never been that far, and they're optimizing it, polishing it. They're probably content locked, or if they're not, they're mechanic locked. Back in 2021, McVicker said there was no Half-Life 3 game in development at the time because Valve was instead busy working on a game called Citadel, which would eventually evolve into Neon Prime and then become Deadlock. So, we've got new Half-Life 3 news, basically. This was kind of if you want a little bit of context, this was sort of rumored back at the Game Awards last year that with the 10th anniversary of the Game Awards, that there could have been a Half-Life 3 announcement at the Game Awards, which would have been huge, especially for Jeff Keighley and his show. And actually would have been huge because I was there. I would have loved to have seen an announcement in person of Half-Life 3. Are you kidding me? That would be great. Now, with this being said, it's playable end to end. What does that really mean from a developer standpoint? So I do have some insight on this. Of course, I don't know anything about Half-Life 3 or Valve's sort of own development cycle or what their production schedule is like. However, whenever a game is playable end to end, that does not mean that the game is 100% ready. It just means that the game is with all its faults, with all its sort of like bugs and everything, it is still each level is playable from end to end. I will admit I have seen those kind of things before, especially I'll even go back as far as The Last of Us. Every single level that I played was playable from beginning to end, minus any sort of bugs or just any additional artwork that still need to be done, any kind of areas that need to be kind of fleshed out a little bit more. So it was just it's at a point where you could be able to just sit down and play it, minus any additional polish or bugs or anything like that. And so what does that mean as far as, is this going to come out this summer or the winter as it was sort of postulated? Potentially. It depends on how long it takes for Valve to basically polish, because this game has probably been in development for a while. There's probably a bit of like they've probably been polishing this entire time. And I would say that 6 to 8 months of polish is not unreasonable. It is a short time frame, because it just depends on what the studio, on how much polish they want to be able to give each game. Let's say, for instance, Nintendo, they are geniuses and basically the kings and queens of polish. They will have a game basically in polish for an entire year if they can, because that they want to make sure that the game is going to run as perfectly as possible. That luxury isn't always available to every studio. Now, granted, Valve is kind of one of those studios that they can kind of do whatever they want whenever they want, because they own Steam. They already have a regular income stream that it basically dwarfs any sort of game that they would put out. They put out games because they like to do that, and that is their bread and butter. Well, not the bread and butter, but that is sort of the base kind of like core of what Valve is, and we wouldn't have Steam if it wasn't for their games. But they could basically just have an entire game ready to go, and we just don't know it until all of a sudden it just isn't released. And they could just shadow drop it. So if they do have Half-Life 3, this could be the going back to as far as like Half-Life Alyx, when that was kind of officially announced and then put out. The marketing time from when it was announced to when it came out, from what I remember, it wasn't that long. So my guess is that, could we see this announced by summer and released by winter? Potentially. I would say it probably is more likely that early 2026 might be the better time frame, because it gives Valve a little bit extra time to be able to basically finish up the game. It's to be able to let it go gold, as they say. And if you're wondering what is going gold, that basically means that the game is locked, it's done, it's ready to go. And now, like usually it used to be that when it goes gold, that means they finish the game in enough time that they're able to start producing CDs or basically discs of the game, so they can be able to send those out to manufacturing. Nowadays, you don't really need to do that as much anymore, and Valve has gotten to the point where they could just release it on Steam, so they don't necessarily need to release a physical version. They might if they do a collector's edition, but most of the time now it's also mostly been digital. So going gold just means that the game is done. It's ready to. There's a build that's basically available. Like if you play this, if they sold the game that day, the day they go gold, it would be basically playable as a public playable just from beginning to end, and it's as if the everything is, they're basically saying it's done, it's ready to go. But again, it's that does it mean it's going to come out winter? Yeah, I'd still say early 2026 is probably a little bit more conservative sort of time frame. I mean, does not say that the Valve can't put it out by the winter. It just depends on how much time do they like how much of the game. Yes, it's playable, but how much of the game is finished? Because you got to remember, there's a lot of artwork that has to go into place. There's a lot, and with obviously with Half-Life, they whenever they dedicate, like they always dedicate a lot of time to sort of the core mechanics of a game. Half-Life has kind of always been revolutionary when it comes to the games themselves, and I think that like Valve would not put out a Half-Life 3 unless they had something interesting about the game itself. So if you think about it, from the original Half-Life, it introduced a immersive story in a first-person setting that had not been done before. It might have been done to a certain degree in some games, like there's a story in Doom, yes, technically, but this was the first time that you actually get to immerse yourself in a world in a first-person setting as you play Gordon Freeman. So that was for Half-Life 1. The Half-Life 2, their revolutionary aspect of it was, again, evolving that immersive gameplay, but also introducing a physics engine that was extremely responsive and reactive to a lot of things. That's why we had stuff like the gravity gun, basically being able to just pick up anything and just throw them, and ragdoll physics, like all that stuff, like all the things we kind of know today and got used to with physics-based kind of games or physics-based response reactions, whatever. They are all, most of it started from what Half-Life 2 was doing. Half-Life Alyx basically kind of revolutionized a little bit of the VR space and kind of adapting that immersive first-person aspect and creating a game that basically is like one of the best VR games out there. I personally have not played it myself. I have it. I've been wanting to be able to play it, and now that there's more Half-Life rumors kind of developing, I kind of want to be able to maybe jump in and back in and try it. But the fact is that you'll be able to like pick up like say a whiteboard marker and start writing on the whiteboard, and you can legitimately do that. Like that is, again, it revolutionized the VR space. So what Half-Life 3 could do, I don't know what that revolutionary new thing could be in the first-person genre, but I would be willing to bet if Valve is basically evolving or creating Half-Life 3, it means they have something. And I'm looking forward to being able to see what that is. So we shall see. Potentially might be, if it says summer, it could potentially be announced around Summer Game Fest, or at least around E3 time. Excuse me. Oh my goodness. Well, that hiccup kind of went weird. Could be announced at Summer Game Fest, or just could be announced whenever they want, sometime in the summer. So we shall see what more details we shall get from Half-Life 3. What do you think? Are you excited for Half-Life 3? Are you going to play Half-Life 3? Do you know Half-Life or have played it before? Are you excited for this? Let me know in the comments down below. All right. Next story we have. Okay, this kind of was announced or talked about last week. This story, I didn't talk about it specifically, but it came out last week. But we do have a response for it, or an update for it. This is by Chris calling over VGC. Accessory manufacturer Genki responds after being sued by Nintendo for showing off Switch 2 early. Nintendo recently filed a lawsuit against the company for showing off 3D printed mock-ups of Nintendo Switch 2 ahead of Nintendo's official announcement. If you remember, if you've watched my show since January, you know that this was definitely a big topic around CES, where this company Genki essentially had a mock-up 3D printed model of what the Switch 2 was going to be, so they could show off their accessories. Apparently, they obviously were not allowed to do that because there was a rumor that Nintendo lawyers or Nintendo representatives shut them down at CES, and we hadn't heard much about it ever since. I had a feeling, and I think I may have even mentioned, that there probably is going to be a lawsuit coming, and it turns out it did. The suit accuses, go back to the article, the suit accuses Genki's parent company, Human Things, of trademark infringement, unfair competition, and false advertising, and if found in Nintendo's favor, would require Genki to destroy all products related to Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2 and to cease using Nintendo's trademarks again. Oh boy. And if you remember, actually, the mock-ups, they were pretty accurate, like severely accurate. So it wasn't like that they just kind of guessed and everything was okay. No, they guessed it pretty much like it was as if they had the actual model themselves. Genki has now posted a statement on Twitter stating that it's currently consulting lawyers, but will continue working as normal while discussions continue. You may have seen that Nintendo recently filed a lawsuit against us, the statement reads. We're taking it seriously and working with legal counsel to respond thoughtfully. What we can say is this: Genki has always been an independent company focused on building innovative gaming accessories for the community we love. We're proud of the work we've done, and we stand by the quality and originality of our products. While we can't comment in detail, we're continuing preparations to fulfill orders and showcase our newest products at PAX East this week. Oh boy, I may actually see these in person. We're grateful for the overwhelming support we've received so far. We'll share more when we can, but for now, we're staying focused on doing what we do best, building gear for gamers. The most notable Switch 2 incident involving Genki came during the Consumer Electronics Show in January 2025, when the company's exhibition page stated that it was happy to discuss any Switch 2 info we may have, as well as the stuff we're making for it. Shortly after this, Genki's CEO Edward Tsai, almost spilled my coffee there, personally showed off the 3D printed mock-ups and stated to different reporters that Genki had access to an authentic Switch 2, on which Genki based the mock-ups, renderings, and 3D printed mock-ups, according to the suit. In January, it was claimed that the lawyers representing Nintendo approached Genki on the CES show floor, and it's alleged that despite this encounter, the company went on to display a video at CES showing off a render of the then-announced Nintendo Switch 2, which included Nintendo trademarks such as Nintendo Switch 2 logo, as well as seeking the destruction of all Genki's Switch-related produces. I think that's what, yeah, I guess produces. Nintendo is also seeking to recover all damages that it sustained as a result of defendants' infringement, unfair competition, and false advertising, and that said damages be trebled. Oh boy! All right, well, it's kind of one of those situations where I hate to say, I don't like to be able to use a lot of language in the show, but this is definitely the definition of fuck around and find out. And that is what Nintendo has done to Genki. It's like, fuck around and find out. There had to have been someone at the Genki booth at CES and knew that this was wrong. To be able to have a 3D mock-up model of an unannounced product that is, at the time in January, was not announced at that point. We did not. There was rumors abound about what the Switch 2 could be, but we didn't even know the name yet. It wasn't until at the end of January when we finally had our first sort of trailer about it, and then they announced the Switch 2 Direct coming in April. And I'd be willing to bet that it probably was. I'd be willing to bet that they probably bumped up the that announcement earlier because of what happened at CES, or at least that would have been definitely a factor in making that decision to put out that video. Because having that teaser video, and then announcing that there's going to be a direct about 2.5 months later, that's normally not Nintendo's MO when it comes to announcing directs. Usually, it's sometimes like if it's a quick direct, like a indie world or partner direct, it's usually within a day or two that they'll announce ahead of time. Sometimes it might be a week, and maybe at most a month, but to have it 3 months before, technically 2 months before, like they could be able to talk about it, I'd be willing to bet that announcement in January was not the right timing as to when they wanted to be able to put that announcement out. But they felt like they had to because the rumors were so massive. Again, couldn't be the full decision. Could have been they had planned that around that time, but I'd be willing to bet that definitely was a factor, and Genki should have known better. Like when you have that's like. And you could say, oh yeah, we're showing off our new products, and upcoming products. Like, yeah, I get that, but you don't show off the model to people being like, oh, do you have what the Switch 2 looks like? Yeah, sure. And people were taking videos and photos just on the show floor. And some of them from them, it's like, that's, don't be stupid. Like, it just, you put yourself in this, you shot yourself in the foot. And I'm actually surprised that they're actually going to be going to PAX East. Now I'm curious to be able to see what they look like. I don't know, I may just sort of pay a visit to the booth just to kind of see what's going to happen. But my goodness, y'all are screwed, because when Nintendo goes to court, they have Nintendo doesn't just go to court just on a whim. they go to court when they think they actually have enough evidence in order to be able to back them up. Like Nintendo's lawyers are very good. And I would be willing to bet that like either A, Genki settles so that they don't destroy their business, but also could potentially harm the fact that now Nintendo won't share anything new with them. They have to basically now get it for everyone else, and then essentially be like then have to be able to create stuff after release instead of actually being able to work with Nintendo on it. Or they could Nintendo could just take them to the cleaners and the company's going to be shut down. It's basically at this point one of those two. Because I don't see Nintendo backing down or dropping the suit unless they get a settlement. And that could hurt, or that could definitely harm Genki, because that's definitely money that I don't think that they would want to give. But hey, it's a lot of people would say it's cancel culture. No, it's consequences for your actions. All right, last story. Hiccups. Last story of the day. Chris Scullion over at VGC has some Destiny news. Speaking of court cases, Bungie fails to provide evidence for Destiny 2 copyright lawsuit because the content is vaulted. Writer Matthew Kelsey Martineau sued Bungie last year for copyright infringement, alleging that Destiny 2's Red Legion was taken directly from his writings on WordPress 4 years before the game was released. I think I remember talking about this last year, and I always felt that, like, whenever these kind of stories come up, it generally does not bode well for the author or the claimed author, because usually these court cases get kind of like get dismissed, or there's not enough evidence on the plaintiff side in order to be able to justify the suit. However, this takes a very interesting turn. Bungie filed a motion to have the case dismissed, stating that the examples cited in Martineau's suit are demonstrably different in Destiny 2 than in his work, but the demonstrably part has become an issue for the studio. Much of the content being cited comes from Destiny 2's Red War campaign and DLC like Curse of Osiris. However, because Destiny 2 is a live service with an evolving storyline, this content has now been placed in the Destiny Content Vault, where it can no longer be accessed by players or even by Bungie itself. Bungie sent the court an affidavit by Destiny 2 game director Tyson Green, in which he explained why the studio was unable to provide the Red War and Curse of Osiris content to the court in its original form. The Red War and Curse of Osiris legacy builds can no longer run because their outdated code isn't compatible with Destiny 2's underlying operational framework, which has evolved considerably since the Red War and Curse of Osiris campaigns were retired, Green said via the game post. As a result, Bungie cannot feasibly provide the court with the original Destiny 2 game as it existed in 2017, including the accused Red War and Curse of Osiris campaigns, in any operable or reviewable form. Nor will Bungie be able to produce the accused campaigns in operable or reviewable form if this matter proceeds to formal discovery. Bungie attempted to make up for this by instead submitting player-made YouTube videos and entries from the fan-written Destinypedia wiki explaining the lore of the now archived content. The court, deciding this wasn't sufficient evidence, has denied Bungie's motion to dismiss the case because Martineau's accusations are aimed at the game's story itself, not third-party retellings of it. While plaintiff does reference Destiny 2 in his complaint, he does not reference the YouTube videos containing Destiny 2 game footage, the Destinypedia pages, or the Tyson declaration, Judge Susie Morgan's order said. She added, the court will not consider the exhibits attached to defendant's motion to dismiss, and will not convert the defendant's motion to dismiss to a motion of summary judgment. The court wrote, there has been not sufficient time for discovery, and the attachments are admittedly of third-party origination. Their authenticity has not been established. The case will therefore continue. Whoopsie! This is what happens. Is what happens when, unfortunately, okay, this is not necessarily all Bungie's fault, by the way. I mean, it kind of is, because it's just funny that basically they put this all in the vault, and because they can't produce it or reproduce it, which I get, their arguments are valid. But the judge is right. It's like, hey, Martineau didn't mention anything about YouTube videos or Destinypedia pages or anything like that. He mentioned the game itself, and if you can't produce the game, and sorry, you can't just dismiss the motion. You're going to have to go forward with the case, because that was the whole thing with Bungie. It's like, oh, we'll just dismiss it because this is the game. Like, we have the evidence. It's not like there's no claim to that Martin. Like, there's no close to any infringement on Martinow at all, because it's a completely different game according to Bungie, and they showed videos and that showcases that story. But because the judge is like, well, that's third-party interpretation, we need the actual game in order to be able to review it. And unfortunately, because it's been vault, I've always been against the vault, to be honest. I mean, I understand a technical reason why. I mean, of course, yes, the code is not compatible. That is one thing, and also it's just there's a lot to be able to kind of have on a live service game, to be able to go back at least about 8 years of content ago and still run properly. I mean, I remember playing Red War back in 2018 and the Curse of Osiris, so I have played it, but I've always felt it was difficult for anyone to be able to jump into Destiny, because the stories that would get people interested in Destiny from the beginning are gone. They're basically at first I would say, oh, Forsaken's a great jumping on point for Destiny 2 fans. Or sorry, if you're jumping into Destiny 2 for the first time. Well, okay, then that got vaulted. Okay, well, Shadowkeep was the next one that I would say probably was a good one. And then that got, things kept getting vaulted so much that it was hard for me to be able to say, yes, this is a good jumping on point, even though they kind of introduced a timeline sort of feature, so you can be able to kind of like read up on basically what had happened since the Red War. But it's not the same. Like, I always kind of felt it would be cool is if there was like a primer where you could basically, like, even leading up to the final shape, which was the final story in this 10-year Light and Dark saga. Yes, you can tell I'm a Destiny fan. I played hundreds of hours in Destiny 2. I would have loved to have been able to see a version of the vault, but it highlighted form. Like, you could jump into highlighted like the best moments of the best of each of those campaigns, so that, but still tell enough of the story, whether it's through like filling in the gaps with cinematics, essentially, to try to be able to kind of catch people up, so that essentially you could just play the entire story of Red War up until the vaulted whatever was the last vaulted thing, and be able to do it in like half the time, if not less than what it took to be able to get through it originally. I always thought that was a great idea, but they obviously, I mean, like Bungie's gonna listen to me. They don't, but that's something I would love to be able to see. And because of them vaulting this the game from like 8 years ago, this is kind of what happens. And now this whole thing of video game preservation would have been great, huh, Bungie? I get it. You're a live service game. You wanted to, you gotta keep updating everything or whatever. But this is what happens when this is what happens in general across the entire industry. When you have a game that essentially is perpetually online, and you take it offline, then it basically means that game is gone forever. You can't, like, there's no, like, you can't just pick up an old copy of Destiny 2 and just put it into put it into whatever console and be able to play it from beginning to end. You just can't. And video game preservation would have at least helped with that by putting something offline or creating a disc version of the content. Like I said, just either the full thing or just highlights of. It would have been great, but unfortunately, it now it's kind of bit Bungie in the ass. And I'd say that I don't want Bungie to suffer through this. I honestly do think that probably Martinow's claims are just not genuine and are really stretching what he claims is his story into what Destiny 2 actually is. I'd be willing to bet that probably Bungie is going to potentially win this case. It's just that they now have to basically pay a lot of lawyers in order to be able to continue with this case instead of getting it dismissed, which is what they were hoping they could be able to do. So anyway, gotta love it. Yeah, that's the best we'd be able to say. Not gotta love it. I mean, I hope Bungie can be able to get this fixed up, because I mean, as much as I have never been, I should say, I haven't been a fan of Bungie in the past year or so. Just of how they've been treating employees, and they've been laying people off. And from what I've heard, it was like there's definitely still a lot of turmoil at Bungie. I want them to succeed. I want the game to succeed for the fans, for the developers who are there, who love the game and love what they do. So I want them to be able to succeed. But unfortunately, this is kind of the cost of doing business, I guess. And anywho, I have nothing else to say. What do you think? What do you think of this whole thing? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, that is going to be it for today's episode. Kind of a little bit longer one, a jam-packed one, I think, with the 3 stories we got through today. But thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. And also make sure to subscribe to this channel so you can really keep seeing more of these videos. I try to be able to upload a video almost every day now, every weekday. It's been great. Yeah, I've been loving doing this. There's been momentum growing in this channel for the past few months, and I'm loving to see it. So I hope that this is something that you are interested in too. And if you are, make sure to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And as always, I remain obediently yours. Bye-bye.